Dressmakers and friends, welcome again on the channel. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to create this stylish sleeve design. There's going to be a lot of tips that I'm going to be sharing in this tutorial, just so you want to achieve either the first design or the second design that I have just showed you. If you are new here, don't forget, subscribe to this channel and give this tutorial a thumbs up because you are going to find it really helpful. In order to create this sleeve, you will need an interfacing. You want to have something that will stabilize your fabric, but it has to be washable because you want to use it to create a sleeve. So I'm going to be using this fabric and I have stay right here. So this is cotton stay and I'm going to be fixing this together to create this design. You need your patterns and I have 4 different patterns here, measuring 7 inches, 6 inches, 5 inches and 4 inches. Okay, so now you need all these 4 patterns, and sometimes if you want to create something small, you can start from 6, 5, 4 and 3 and something like that. Okay, so this is measuring 7 by 7, 6 by 6, 5 by 5 and then so on. So in the first design that you saw, this was used. In the second design that you saw, it was 6 inches, 5 inches, 4 inches and 3 inches that was used in that second design. So you should have something that look like this in your pattern. And now the next thing that you want to do is to go ahead to make it into like a sort of curve. Now you are going to get your pattern like this. It can either be folded or you can have it straight like this. As you can see, I fold this like this, so what I'm going to have now is 3.5. So if you make your pattern like this, that simply means that you have to make sure that you cut your fabric on fold. Okay, you have to note that the straight part has to be on fold. But since I have mine wide open, I'm just simply going to cut out the shape or draft out the shape. So once you are comfortable with a shape that you like, then you can just trim off the excess and then you will get your shape just as you have seen me done right now. So by the time I flip this open, this is what I am going to have. Okay, and now I am also going to do the same thing on that of the 6 inches, 5 inches, 4 inches and 3 inches. You just have to get like your curve ruler, or you can also do it freehand. If you are sure of what you want to get, just make sure that you just get a nice curve so that your outcome will look nice as well. Okay, so once you have gotten all of your curve, the next thing that you want to do is to just put them all together just like this. You can see that this is what I now have for all of the sizes. Like I mentioned, if you want it to be smaller, make sure you start from 6, 5, 4 and 3. Okay, so I've gone ahead to add my interfacing to my fabric. Another tip I would like to share with you is if you need something that would even be more structured, do well to choose fabric that are more of static, maybe hard silk or mikado or something like that. This I'm using right now is a Duchess silk. Okay, like I was sharing earlier, if you cut your paper and you want it to be on fold, that means you have to place it like this, which means you are going to cut one at once. And remember, you need a pair, so it's better for you to cut or draft that pattern wide open so that you are able to cut like a pair at once. I hope that makes sense. All right, so now I'm going to be folding this. You can see I have 3 fold, which simply means that if I place my pattern paper, each of my pattern paper will give me like 3 pair like that. Okay, can you see? So now I'm just going to like make sure that I have just a little bit of seam allowance all around my pattern, and afterwards I'm just going to like draw out all of the patterns. Then I will just simply go ahead to cut. Now for these seam allowances, you just need 0.25 to 1 centimeter. You really don't need so much. The maximum you should have is like ½ inch, because at the end of the day you are still going to trim it off so that you can get a nice curve at the end of the day. So draw out all of the pattern so that it will be easy for you to just simply go ahead and use your scissors to just cut out everything just like that. So once you have put all of your seam allowance, the next thing will be for you to go ahead to cut. So you can see the bigger size, the smaller size, and the next size just like that. So once I cut like this, I'm going to have multiple at once. Okay, so this will just help me to save time. Doing this will also help you to save time, so you can have multiple fabric folded at once. Okay, so now once you have all of your pattern cut like this is what you are going to have. This is my size 7, 6, 5 and 4. So for my last size right here, I'm going to be stuffing it. You're going to see how that is done. And I also have this long strip measuring 40 inches, which I am going to actually gather up. This is 40 inches by 2.5 because the ½ inch I'm going to use it for seam allowance. The next thing you're going to do is to start sewing this all around. Remember I told you it has to be a pair, so you have to put two together just like this. And don't forget, everything that we have cut is just for one sleeve, which means for everything that you are cutting, you must make sure that you cut separately for one sleeve, like a batch for one sleeve and another batch for the second sleeve. So, and now you are going to sew all around like this. Let me also mention that for my size 7, I actually cut 6 pairs. For my size 6, I cut 5 pairs. For my size 5, I cut 4 pairs. And for my size 4, you cut 4 pairs as well. And remember that all of these pairs are just for one sleeve. So for the other sleeve, you are also going to still cut the same numbers for the second sleeve, like the same number, just in batch like that. So for this sleeve, you are going to need nothing less than 2 yards of fabric for you to be able to create this, no matter the size that you are creating. Even if you are starting with the size 6 as your biggest size, you will need at least 2 yards. So you should have 2 to 3 yards if you want to have something like that looks really good. Okay, 2 to 3 yards of fabric will do this. And then after cutting, you need to now go ahead to sew everything up together in pairs, like 2, 2, 2, 2. Sew them together so that it becomes like a lining and the fabric together. So once you are done sewing, you should have something that looks like this. I just like sewing in a chain manner like this because it just make me feel that I am faster, something like that. Okay, so now after doing this, you now go ahead to trim down. So is it that you trim down your seam allowance like this, or you notch? And I feel that trimming it down like this, it's much faster than notching, and that's why I just sort of like to trim it down. So trim everything down, trim it down nicely, and then you can pull out all of the curves. Okay, make sure that all of the curves is coming out right as a curve. And once you have done that, the next thing will be for you to go ahead to your pressing table, and then you start to press. Before you press, make sure that you pull out and you get a good curve, because once you press it, it may not be easy for you to now have to open it up for you to be able to get your curve out. Okay, so make sure that you press it well. And then after pressing it, the next thing will be for you to sew. But this pressing part is really important. The only one that you will need to open up after pressing is the one that you are going to be stuffing, and I'm going to be showing us how to stuff it later on in the video. If you have not subscribed to this channel, now is a good time to do so. Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up even before you continue. I know you have found it helpful already. Next, here is what I am talking about when I'm talking about stuffing. You only need to like open up the last, like the smallest ones, okay? And then you're going to go ahead to get your fiber. Here is what fibers usually look like. I'm sure you must have seen this or come across it before now. So all you need to do is just get a little bit of fiber. You really don't need so much to actually pull this off, okay? So just get a little bit of fiber like this, and then you slide it in. Like I said, you really don't need so much, so you don't have to overstuff, because if you overstuff it, it's going to like kind of look kind of weird. So you don't want to overstuff. Just make sure that you stuff it lightly, and that's what I have done. You can see that everything I have stuffed, this is what it looks like, and by the time you want to sew, this is what you should look like. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is to make the flower that is inside, like all of the petal. Okay, and for you to start that, you are going to just start sewing like this. You are going to cross the fabric at an angle just like that, and then we are going to make this flower. This flower itself is like an embellishment, and I have a tutorial video on how to actually create this flower itself. It is much more detailed, so if after watching this segment you do not really understand, I will advise that you watch that tutorial. I'm going to link it up on the screen for you so that you can just get to watch it after this, and then you can get a good understanding of how this is created. You just have to keep sewing like this. The most important thing is what you do at the beginning, which I just showed you. So once you have been able to get that beginning, just sew it like this, and it just kind of form a twist on its own. You really don't need to do so much, and once you get to the end, you can just backstitch one side. So after doing this, the next thing you want to do is to make gathers. Remember, this has to be done on loose stitch. Like I said, there's a detailed video on how to create this, so if you do not understand this segment, please make sure you check that video. That video has been uploaded on this channel before now, so I'm going to link it in the description also for us. So make everything into a gathers just like this, just like you manually make your gathers, and by the time that you are done gathering it, you should have something that looks like this. And then the next thing you would do after making the gathers is to sort of make it into like a flower by stitching and putting everything all together using your needle and your thread. Okay, so once you are done using the needle and the thread to stitch it together, all you need to do is to put it aside. You have something that looks like this, so just put it aside, and then you are going to get a base just like this, something of like 2.5 inches on a circle. 2.5 inches on a circle, that will give you like 5 inches. So but by the time you use the ½ inch to like sew it in and make it into like lining and fabric, you should have 4 inches. So you come in by 1 inch, and then you place the first petal on it. Make sure that you fold the center like that. Take a look at how I'm doing it again, and make sure that the next one overlaps the first one just as seen. Okay, so make sure that that center is folded, and then the next one overlaps the last one. You're going to see the next one again, the way it will overlap the next one. Take a look at how I am going to sew this. So you just have to like come in by 1 inch on your base, this circular fabric, that's the base, and then you sew all of your petals on top of it like that, one at a time. Here's another tip I would like to give to you when you are sewing this is you will need to use, like, if your machine uses a size 16 needle, I advise you use a size 18, because there's going to come a time where the fabric becomes really thick. Okay, just so that it is easy for your machine needle to handle. So once you have done with the first batch, just tilt your foot, and then you place the next one on it. You really don't need to disconnect the stitch, okay, so that the base is also neat. Okay, and then you continue with the next size. All right, the same thing, make sure it overlaps, and make sure that you actually give it one pleat at the center just like that, just so that the petals just becomes a little more realistic, something like that. I know you get the gist. So that's what we are just trying to achieve. Make sure that the center is folded, and make sure it all overlaps, and then onto the next size, and then onto the next size, just like that. This is how you are going to continue placing it strategically, making sure that there is no space in between. You just have to make sure that everything looks really good until you get to the very end, which is like the last size that you actually stuffed together. So you just have to keep placing it like that. Once you are done with like the first size, you move to the next size, then to the next size. Everything will have to start with the biggest size first, okay, and then at the end of it, it will be with the smallest size which you have stuffed with your fiber. Okay, by the time you are done stitching everything, you should have something that looks like this. And now all you need to do is cut out all of the hanging thread, and if you have done this really well, everything should still look very neat. So now the next thing you do is to place this flower which you have created in between it, and you can see what this is really looking like. Now In order to stitch this in place, you cannot use your machine. You will need to actually have to use your hand needle. And here is another tip that I'm going to be sharing. Make sure that you are using the long hand needle. This is just going to make the work really easy for you. You see that I used a small one and I just tend to struggle a little bit. So use your very long hand needle when you are stitching this in place. You really just have to use the hand needle. And don't forget to check out the tutorial on how to create this flower at the center if you are not so sure about how to actually create that flower at the center. And while you are stitching it, you also have to make sure that everything is neat. It is either neat or neat. Everything just has to come out really neat for it to have to make sense. Okay, so and stitch everything down neatly like that. And once you are done and stitching everything, you can now secure the end of your stitch once you see that the flower at the center is in place properly. You can also bead the center if you are not going to be putting that flower. And here is the final look with the flower at the center. Now the next thing you need to know is how to attach this to your actual sleeve. Ensure that your sleeve already has a base. If you are making this a corset, here is what I refer to as a base. You can see that it has like an overarm base, just like a sort of off shoulder. And you can see the point of sewing the flower to the circular base. And now you can see the circular base being attached to the sleeve that is already on the dress. Can you see? So now I know that you already understand this. I know that this video has been really helpful to you guys, right? So if you are beading it, this is what it should look like. And if you are adding flower at the center, this is what it should look like. I know that this video has been really helpful, so do well to give this video a thumbs up. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think this is what you'll be trying out? Which of these design do you prefer? Do you prefer with a flower or with the beading at the center? Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you again in this next sewing tutorial.